Hi, everyone. I wanted to come and spend a few minutes with you guys this morning to talk about something you're going to be reading about in chapter 26, your medicine chapter, on page 680. You guys will notice there's going to be a small section called endocrinology. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because it plays a big factor in the area that we live in. Uh, Louisiana and the South are known for having a higher number of diabetics um, than most of the rest of the country due to mostly our eating habits. So, endocrinology, a lot of diabetics play see endocrinologists, and so monitoring their glucose is something that a lot of doctors do. And especially on your type 1 diabetics is what um, the coding for it that we discuss in this chapter is for continuous glucose monitoring. Okay, codes 95249 through 95251 are for continuous glucose monitoring. They also call it CGM. And this used to be only for type 1 diabetics, but more and more type 2 diabetics are using a form of this. Myself in particular, I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I have a sensor that I wear all the time, and it monitors my glucose 24 hours a day, and it tells me, it shoots an alarm to my phone as to when my blood sugar is too high or too low. And if I start to feel funny, I can check it and see where my blood sugar's at, and it keeps me accountable. I can eat something and a little while later check my numbers without having to poke my finger. Um, and it's great. It really helps to keep accountable. But with type 1 diabetics, since their bodies create no insulin whatsoever, it is super important that they continuously monitor their glucose levels, because it's very, very easy for them to drop down to little to no glucose in their system and then fall into a diabetic coma. That's a real concern for them. And I've known people that this has happened to before CGMs were a big thing, um, back in the 90s. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the endocrinology section because of that. And again, these codes are for the ones in the medicine codes are for reporting glucose monitoring. Continuous glucose monitoring is a procedure in which a probe is inserted subcutaneously, which means under the skin, and attached to a monitor worn by the patient. And I used to work with a girl who was a type 1 diabetic, and she had a little sensor that was implanted in her belly, and there was a little black box that she wore on her hip, on her belt loop, and that was her monitor that kept all of her data, basically. Okay, the monitor records the glucose level for 72-hour period, in which time the probe is removed and the data is downloaded from the monitor. The patient records his or her insulin administration, meals, exercise, anything they do that could have affected their levels, uh, and any hypoglycemic events during the monitoring period. In addition to performing the usual finger stick glucose 4 times a day during a 3-day period. The service includes the initial hookup, calibration of the monitor, patient training, removal of sensor, printout of recording for physician-provided equipment. That's code 95250. For patient-provided equipment, 95249, and code 95251 reports the analysis, interpretation, and monitoring report. Okay? So those are all very specific codes that apply to each step of this process. Okay, so, and again, if you guys go to work in medical offices in Louisiana, if you'll stay in the state, you're going to see a high level of diabetic patients. Glucose monitoring and glucose coding and things like that are going to be something that y'all should see a lot. So I hope this helped y'all out, kind of relating what you're reading in the book to the day and age we live in and what's going on in the real world. So hope this helped. And again, if you guys have any questions or concerns, I'm always here. Have a great day.